Hello, my name is Andrea Valverde, and I'm going to talk about 21st century skills, and more specifically about something called the Google effect and its impact on education and learning. I'm sure you're all familiar with this webpage. Chances are if you had homework or had to look up a question or anything, you Googled it. And you might notice when I said that it's not only a noun, but it's also a verb now. And students nowadays are more likely to Google the information they need instead of going to the library and look through old, dusty books. This is the Google algorithm, which is called PageRank. And if you look at it just like that, it looks really complicated and very difficult to understand. But it actually means that more traffic and clicks equals higher search results. So what we're seeing is like the more popular items or articles at the top of the list, but they may not be such high quality. And we might be leaving the higher quality but maybe less popular items to fall down to the second, third, or 789th page. There was an update to Google in 2011 called Google Panda, which allows you to rank low-quality sites and higher-quality sites so that they return the higher-quality ones to the top of the search results. But actually, when we Google something, the vast majority of us doesn't look past the first page and even maybe past the first few articles. And Tara Brabazon, an ICT professor from the UK, coined this as the Google effect, which he says we're coming to value popularity over quality, and we're coming to a flattening of expertise, which is the Google effect. And actually, we might be reading like the first article, so we might be missing out on a lot of information. And if you notice, in almost any given query, the Wikipedia article is among the first ones, and a lot of people just look at that one. And a journalist called Nicholas Carr from The Atlantic says we're becoming pancake people. People with a wide but flat knowledge base, like a pancake. So basically, we're knowledgeable in many areas, but experts in none. And this brought me to think of how people have worried about these kinds of things for a long, long time. And an example I have is in ancient Greece, from Plato's Phaedrus, Socrates is regretting the development of writing because he says, and this was 2,500 years ago, and with something so simple as the development of writing. And in one of the dialogues character's name, in one of the dialogues, they say people are going to cease to exercise their memory and become forgetful, and they be able to receive a quantity of information without proper instruction. Be thought very knowledgeable when they are for the most part quite ignorant, filled with a conceit of wisdom instead of real wisdom. So if you notice these dialogues, they're very similar to what people are worrying about right now with the development of like technology and using Google as a first source of information. So it's really similar to what's happening right now. So what I noticed with the Google effect is that research that once required days and days in the library with tons of books and piles of books can now be done in minutes or even seconds. And it changes the way people are thinking about learning and comprehending and research and like assimilating data, which also means a change in education and learning for students, and in our case for a new generation, so like Generation Y. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? Let's take a look at the differences between, like in research, between these two. Without Google, the sources were very limited. You had to go to the library and find books that you needed, and you need to find a specific one, read through it, and find what you need. Because going back to the library is a lot of trouble, and if you want to go like twice a day or 3 times, it's very difficult. So you needed to create associations to assimilate the information you're reading and apply it to something else that you really learn it. When the information needs to be recalled because it's stored in the mind and you created associations and assimilated it, it is at easy access and you can recall it at any given time. With Google, what happens with a lot of people is that because there are search engines available at all times, and you can Google basically anything, and there's no need to remember anything because you can just Google it at any time. So you don't create anything because it's available 24/7 in your computers or mobile phones. So there's no need to remember the information. And because the information is saved externally, everything is, when you need it, you basically remember where you saved it or where you found it instead of the information you really need. So the dangers of the Google effect is that students need to understand nowadays in the 21st century that not all published information out there is equally valuable, which also happens with all published information out there, like academic journals that might be more reliable maybe than some other books, like self-published books. And I'm not saying Wikipedia, for example, is bad, because there might be good information and valuable information in there, but there are no clues to evaluate credibility a lot of times. And for example, from the New York Times, an article, it has been through fact checkers and copy editors, and the dangers are like both ways. With newspapers, you can get political bias or any other kind of bias, whereas in Wikipedia, it's like a forum for democratic development, because anyone can write in there. So there's dangers on both sides. So students nowadays need to learn critical reading, and they need to learn some skills to detect valuable and reliable information if they're going to rely on Google as the first source of information. And there's also the problem of plagiarism, which is common in many schools with unethical students that copy even entire articles. Psychologists are calling the internet transitive memory, which means it's like a memory we're saving externally. We know when and how to access this memory, but we do not save the information in our minds. And knowing how to use Google does not necessarily mean that a student is learning or comprehending. And learning is when you can create something new with the information you know, or you can apply it to something else in real life. So students have to test understanding through implementation to something else in their lives to detect relevant information so that the learning process is complete after research on the internet. And Google also has its benefits. With Google and the internet, you can get like visual stimuli, and also the simplicity of the text on the internet is very different to encyclopedias and normal books. And there's also a lot of graphics, videos, anything. And the critical information on the internet is usually very easy to recognize. And also on the internet, you get a lot of point of views, whereas if you look for the answer to a question on an encyclopedia, maybe you're only getting one answer because there was like one author from that. So you can evaluate it as a student and interpret it on your own and get various points of view. So for my conclusions, I believe Google is something like irreversible. Books are still used today and might be still used in a while. But there's no going back from Google. It's already there, and we're not going to go back and not use it. And like I said before, in ancient times, there were worries with some other things, the development of writing, and also with the development of the printing press with Gutenberg in the 15th century. People thought humans would become intellectually lazy with books. And it didn't happen. It's just like an adaptive process. So it's like a transition to a technological age, and students need to learn some skills to adapt to that. And I think for the learning process to be complete with the internet, there has to be an interpretation from the student about the information they're reading, and then evaluate it on their own and detect relevant and valuable information, and then finally apply it to something else instead of just memorizing it or to just forget it in a few days. And I believe Google is there to stay, and students in the 21st century need to learn how to use it properly so they can get like a complete learning process. Thank you.